The National Desk, America's News, now.
I just want to say it's a very unfair trial. It should have never happened. If it was going to happen, it should have happened 7 years ago.
The jury, what the judge said to the jurors about how to handle the unprecedented trial of a former president. Scottie Scheffler's attorney was back in court today on his behalf. What this means for the #1 golfer and the felony charges hanging over his head. And the return of panda diplomacy. Despite U.S.-China tensions, pandas will once again make an appearance in the United States. How many are coming and which zoos are now gearing up to provide them a home? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David, and developing right now the fate of Donald Trump in the first criminal trial of a former president rests in the hands of a jury. And 12 jurors right now in the state of New York are deliberating on 34 separate felony counts against Trump of falsifying business records and violating campaign finance laws in an attempt to hide a $130,000 hush money payment to an adult film star. A verdict could come at any hour. Let's get right to the National Desk's Atra al-Nashar, who's been following this historic trial for us. Atra.
The legal fate of former President Donald Trump is now in the hands of a jury of 7 men and 5 women deliberating on the 34 felony counts Trump faces for allegedly falsifying business records to hide damaging information and illegal activity surrounding the 2016 election. For more than an hour Wednesday, jurors received instructions from the judge on how to proceed. The personal views of each juror were heavily scrutinized during their selection process 6 weeks ago. Still, Judge Merchan reminded them, you must set aside any personal opinions you have in favor or against the defendant. Still, Trump's repeating his claim the case is rigged.
It's a disgrace. And I mean that Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do.
The defense spent much of their closing arguments Tuesday trying to discredit Michael Cohen, the prosecution's star witness and Trump's former so-called fixer. Judge Merchan tells the jury under the law, Cohen is an accomplice, so they cannot convict Trump based on his testimony alone. Jurors were also instructed to not speculate on possible sentencing, which could include prison time. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 4 years. Probation is also an option. It would be entirely up to the judge. Even without the verdict, many are speculating about its political blowback.
I actually think if he's convicted, helps a little bit on the margins, tiny bit. I think if he's found not guilty, I think that's more of a benefit for him than if he's found guilty for the other side.
If there's a conviction here, it will change the justice system forevermore. It will weaponize the system.
As for when we'll get the verdict?
I think it's going to take them a day just to get their sea legs and figure out what the evidence was, what the law is, before they can really get down to brass tacks. The other thing in my experience is when a weekend approaches, a jury then starts to reach a decision.
Weekends are certainly motivators. Now, Judge Merchan tells the jury deliberating each day will be determined as they go, but it's unlikely they'd go later than 6 p.m.
And Atra, there are 6 alternate jurors, I understand. What do we know about their role at this point?
Well, we know they've not yet been dismissed from this case. Judge Merchan is having them stay in the courthouse as long as the regular jury is in the courthouse because he said there might be a need for them at some point during the deliberations. According to New York law, it could be for a reason as simple as somebody getting sick or not showing up.
All right, live from Washington, D.C., Atra al-Nashar covering a very historic trial. Thank you so much. Supreme Court Associate Justice Samuel Alito told House and Senate Democrats he will not be recusing himself from 2 separate cases involving Donald Trump. Democrats wanted Alito to step aside because of perceived biases due to 2 flags that flew outside of his home in Virginia, as well as a vacation home. The flags appeared to be sympathetic to Trump and others who claimed the 2020 election was stolen. Alito said the decision to fly the flags was his wife's, not his, and she has her own First Amendment rights. Today, more than 15 million people are at a slight risk. 2 out of 5 for severe weather today over the northern and central plains. Right now, storms impacting the Gulf states as well as the East Coast. Tornadoes are not as big of a risk today, but some of these storms can still bring pretty high winds and hail. Looking ahead to tomorrow, parts of Texas and Oklahoma could see severe storms again, but coming with it will be intense heat. From the Pacific to the Atlantic, almost the entire southern half of the United States will be under some kind of heat alert. Parts of Texas and Florida could have major alerts in effect. And if you are in those specific areas, make sure to stay inside or at least have proper hydration. And check out this video from yesterday's storms in Texas. An American Airlines plane completely blown off away from its gate at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. While the storm was underway, DFW International placed a ground stop, which delayed or canceled more than 700 flights. New tonight, all charges against Scottie Scheffler, the world's #1 rated golfer, have been dropped. Scheffler was arrested outside of the PGA Championship in Louisville 2 weeks ago for driving past a police roadblock and dragging an officer behind his car. Last week, the Louisville Police Department released dash cam video that seemed to show that didn't happen. Scheffler will also not countersue the Louisville Police Department as he was planning to do. Abortion providers are asking an Indiana trial judge to broaden access to abortions under the state's current near-total ban. The main focus of the trial is over whether the health exemptions in Indiana's abortion ban are too narrow. The current law allows for abortions in rare circumstances, including the health or life of a woman at risk, but only in a hospital setting. Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers are set to ask the judge for a preliminary injunction, expanding the medical exemptions and blocking the hospital-only requirement. The groups argue the ban's current exceptions are written so narrowly that in practice, doctors can't perform necessary care. The Indiana Supreme Court upheld the ban back in June. The trial is underway and scheduled to wrap by Friday. More than 4 million chickens in the state of Iowa have to be killed after another bird flu outbreak. State officials say the highly contagious disease was found on a large egg farm in Sioux County, and it comes after more than 1 million chickens had to be killed on an egg farm near Minneapolis, Minnesota, after the bird flu was discovered there last week. More than 92 million birds have been killed since this outbreak started in 2022. The disease is highly contagious among birds, but only 3 human cases of bird flu have been confirmed in the United States. And the Catholic Diocese of Fresno is preparing to declare bankruptcy. The diocese is facing 154 cases of sexual abuse of a minor going back decades. Recently, California passed the Sexual Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act, allowing victims there to file suit even if the statute of limitations had passed.
The reopening of the window has made every diocese in California susceptible to more claims. What we are facing gives us the opportunity to redouble our efforts in creating a safe environment for everyone.
But the Survivors Network of those abused by priests, also known as SNAP, says filing for bankruptcy could do more harm to the victims by allowing the church to avoid paying out in full. It is important to clarify none of the claims involve anyone currently serving in the diocese. Embattled former media mogul Harvey Weinstein could be looking at a long road ahead as he seeks a retrial on his landmark Me Too-era rape case that has him serving more than 20 years behind bars. Manhattan prosecutors told a judge today that they are evaluating new claims of sexual misconduct against the Hollywood exec that could potentially seek a new indictment against him. Weinstein's lawyer told reporters that his client was confident no additional accusers would be found to bolster the prosecution's case. Today's development comes after his 2020 conviction was tossed out not long ago, teeing him up for another retrial sometime after Labor Day. Artificial intelligence is being used by more applications as it develops and gains popularity, but new research shows Americans are becoming more skeptical of AI, especially when it comes from social media companies. The National Desk's Janae Bowens joins us now with a deeper look at the studies and the reasons for the distrust.
Many in the U.S. are uneasy about social media companies with AI.
I think people are understanding that AI is not this limitless sci-fi tool.
Chief Analytics Officer for the Pioneer Development Group, Christopher Alexander, says the distrust is partially because people have realized they are social media's product.
They're learning everything they can about you to sell things to you.
Meta, ByteDance, and X have lower trust scores, while companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, and NVIDIA that have a larger focus on AI are more trusted by Americans. Axios and John Gersma and his company, the Harris Poll, are behind the research.
35% of Americans trusted social media for getting their news, and 78% of Americans said it was biased. So there's very much a sort of a built-in mistrust when it comes to social media.
Experts say social media companies must make sure the technology is beneficial for the user.
When we asked the public why, they said that companies are not focused on helping me manage my monthly budget, meaning that they weren't focused on bringing down high prices. They were passing along costs. They were giving less value to the consumer. So if you put AI into that context, basically talking about AI was sort of this pie in the sky Jetsons thing when Americans were just like, hey, I need my gas and my groceries to be more affordable.
I think being a little more open and honest about what these social media platforms do with your data. As for AI, I mean, with deep fakes and everything, there's as many reasons to be concerned about as there is to be excited about it.
Although most people see the importance of AI, the data shows there's not a huge rush to products or services that use it. Of course, we know there are concerns about AI replacing people's jobs. I'm Janae Bowens reporting.
Janae, thank you. Coming up, Biden's nomination date won't be moved up to make the Ohio ballot in November. Inside the Democrats' plan to make sure Biden makes it anyway. Professional baseball records are being drastically rewritten. Literally, what's behind Major League Baseball's overhaul of who is recognized as the greats of all time. And later, a measles outbreak on a flight to California. The warning officials are giving to everyone who may have been exposed. The Biden administration on the defense tonight after newly released video from CNN, which analyzed the fact that munitions used in the Israeli strike that led to the fire on tents that killed dozens of displaced Palestinians taking refuge were U.S. made. Today, when questioned, Secretary of State Antony Blinken wouldn't confirm U.S. weapons were used, but said he wanted to see more care for civilian life.
I don't think anyone who has seen the images cannot be deeply affected by them. Just on a on a basic human level. We have been very clear with Israel on the imperative in this instance, as in other instances, to immediately investigate.
The fire on Sunday killed at least 45 Palestinians, including children, and wounded more than 200, according to health authorities in Hamas-run Gaza. Israel's Netanyahu says the fire was unintentional and called it a tragic error that's now under investigation. And possible signs of life from one man taken hostage on October 7th by Hamas. Palestinian Islamic Jihad releasing a video showing Alexander Trufanov speaking and in relatively good health. The video is not dated, but could possibly increase internal pressure on the Israeli government to come to a deal that would bring him and the more than 120 others thought to be alive and held by Hamas home. The U.S. is reportedly trying to reignite indirect talks between the two sides this week. The Ohio State Legislature is back in session working on a bill to allow President Biden to be on the November ballot. As it stands now, Ohio will certify its ballot on August 7th, 2 weeks before Biden is formally nominated by the DNC. The Ohio House said it will compromise on a bill in the Ohio Senate to extend the deadline, but only if they remove what they call anti-democratic measures. The Senate bill under debate only extends the deadline this year and also bans donations by non-U.S. citizens for political purposes. Democrats say that disenfranchises legal residents who still want to be politically active. Meanwhile, the Democratic National Committee is planning to hold a virtual roll call to nominate Biden before the August 7th deadline. The DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committee will vote next Tuesday to allow for virtual party proceedings. The full committee will have to approve it and then set the final date for the nomination. Nissan is issuing a do not drive warning to owners of about 84,000 older vehicles because of a risk of exploding airbag inflators. Certain 2002 through 2006 Sentra small cars, 2002 through 2004 Pathfinder SUVs, and 2002 through 2003 Infiniti QX4 SUVs are impacted. At least one person has died, and as many as 58 people have been injured since 2015. Nissan dealers can replace the inflators for free, and you can check Nissan's website to see if your car has been affected. Major League Baseball officially has some new record holders, knocking household names like Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth off the top of the charts in some categories. MLB has incorporated Negro League statistics from 1920 through 1948 into their own records. MLB statisticians have been going over data of over 2,300 Negro League players and are recognizing all-time greats like Josh Gibson Satchel, Paige and Jackie Robinson, among many others, for their accomplishments. In 2020, the MLB recognized the Negro League as its equal, but needed time to fully review and compile the statistics. American Airlines is facing a racial discrimination lawsuit brought by 3 black men. The lawsuit claims that 8 black men were removed from a flight because of a complaint of offensive body odor. The 8 passengers say they didn't know each other, were not traveling together, and were the only black passengers on the flight. The 3 plaintiffs said at no point did any airlines employee say anything to them about a smell. American Airlines said they are taking these claims very seriously and are investigating the matter. 2 new giant pandas will be heading to the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. The Smithsonian Zoo announced today that the panda Boli and Chingbo will be sent to the zoo by the end of the year. This announcement comes after the National Zoo sent its 3 pandas back to China about a half a year ago when its loan agreement was up.
In Kung Fu Panda 2, the soothsayer told Bao that it is who you choose to be that makes you who you are. For the well-being of both peoples and the future of the world, China and the United States should choose to be partners, not rivals.
And China is also sending a pair of pandas to the zoo in San Diego. In your health alert, the most common procedure to treat a heart rhythm problem works better at saving lives than previously thought. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains how.
Hey there, everybody. This study looked at how well ablations using tools such as these inside the heart treat a common condition known as atrial fibrillation.
Atrial fibrillation is an abnormal rhythm of the heart where the electrical system gets haywired and the upper chambers of the heart of the four chambers are continuously fibrillating and not maintaining the normal rhythm.
Dr. Gaurang Gandhi of Ohio's Tri-Health is an electrical heart specialist who told me using real-world data, researchers in this study found the ablation procedure to fix this problem performed better than expected. Dr. Gandhi's team provided this procedure video.
Ablation is a technology where we deliver electrical current to destroy the activities that are connecting between the blood vessels and the heart for atrial fibrillation.
Researchers in the journal Heart Rhythm found 1 year after an ablation, 8 out of 10 patients no longer had AFib. 9 out of 10 of those patients were able to stop taking medications to treat atrial fibrillation. What's more is that
on the long term, we know that patients with atrial fibrillation live less compared to a patient without atrial fibrillation, and they have complications like stroke.
Researchers say improvements in technology, such as this pulse field ablation tool, also likely to continue to improve patient odds in the future.
And this is a very targeted damage only to the electrical cells, nothing in front, nothing in back, making it even more safer procedure.
The most common AFib symptoms include a fast fluttering heartbeat, chest pain, fatigue, dizziness, lightheadedness, shortness of breath, and even weakness. If you do notice any of these, ask your doctor for a referral to a cardiologist. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Okay, Liz, thank you. Coming up, in one Seattle school district, many elementary schools could be closing. What the parents there say as they speak out against it. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
There's truly a culture that just is wanting every student to thrive, and you will see it every day of the week at this school.
Many families in this neighborhood tell me they chose to live here specifically for this school.
This school has been a life-changing for me, for my family, and for my son.
I was really sad because I didn't want it to close, and I just felt like that it's too good to close.
But to save millions of dollars, Seattle Public Schools says it needs to close and consolidate dozens of elementary schools. It's looking at under-enrolled schools with fewer than 300 students. But parents want to know how that matters.
I think our school very much welcomes, some growth from other schools in consolidation.
Their unanswered questions include how this proposal will really save money.
I think we need to see the numbers, right? Like, that's the most important thing right now is the district has to show their work.
Measles are no joke. According to the World Health Organization, measles are highly contagious and sometimes can lead to serious complications or death. So what exactly is measles, and how do you know if you have it? Usually the biggest sign is a rash. Experts say you'd notice it on your face and upper neck. It could spread over 3 days and eventually lead to your hands and feet. That's why the Los Angeles County Department of Health sent out a notice saying a passenger at LAX flew into Fresno with measles. On May 19th, a traveler on board Lufthansa flight LH452 from Munich, Germany, landed at the Tom Bradley International Terminal around 3 in the afternoon. 5 hours later, that passenger flew from LAX to Fresno Yosemite International Airport, according to the flight number. The LA County Public Health says anyone who thinks they have been exposed should confirm they've been vaccinated against measles.
The Hall County Courthouse sees plenty of repeat customers.
There may be repeat offenders in certain crimes.
Jerry Piccolo represents many of them as public defender. One of them, Josh Guardiola, was working his way through the system when the legislature changed sentencing for a man called a habitual offender.
It has been called many things like the 3 strikes and you're out law.
Being a habitual criminal previously added a minimum of 10 years to a prison sentence. The legislature changed that to 3 years on the low end, up to 20. A criminal justice report done in cooperation with the state finds Nebraska's an outlier with rising prison numbers. That comes at a cost of hundreds of millions, plus a new prison costing hundreds of millions more.
The legislature is grappling with, a new prison now, and the price tag is not cheap.
This attorney says the fiscally conservative thing to do is fund programs like drug court instead of throwing people in prison longer.
Well, the Mega Millions jackpot has surpassed $500 million. No ticket matched all 6 numbers drawn last night. And so now the mega prize is ballooned to over $522 million. The take home is $241 million, and the next drawing is on Friday. Best of luck to all of you guys trying your hand. And that does it for this edition of the National Desk. Thank you so much for watching.